There are moments in Formula One that don't just sting, they haunt. Hungary 2025 was supposed to be Ferrari's salvation. The team had endured a turbulent season marked by underperformance, baffling strategy calls, and a car that only seemed to work when it wasn't allowed to. But then came that one glimmer of hope. Charles Leclerc, out of nowhere, took pole position at the Hungary. It wasn't luck. It wasn't chaos. It was raw speed. For once, Ferrari had the fastest car on a Saturday, and it looked like they could carry it through Sunday. But what followed was not just a loss, it was a public unraveling of a team's deepest problems. Leclerc held the lead early in the race, controlling Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris with an air of composure. The gap hovered comfortably at 3 seconds. The Ferraris had weathered the first 2 stints and were on pace to finally break McLaren's iron grip. But after the final pit stop, something broke almost literally. The gap evaporated. Piastri devoured Leclerc's lead in just 4 laps. By the time the checkered flag dropped, Leclerc had fallen to 4th, finishing nearly 40 seconds behind Norris. It was one of the most dramatic collapses seen this season, and yet, the paddock wasn't shocked, it was suspicious. Why? Because this wasn't new. Back in Shanghai, Ferrari won the sprint and then lost everything after being disqualified from the Grand Prix issue. Plankwear, the underbody plank, designed to prevent cars from running dangerously low, had worn too thin. The implications were devastating. Ferrari had built a car that could only shine when it danced on the edge of legality. That meant every Sunday, the team had to run higher ride heights, compromise setups, and back off the throttle at key parts of the track. Hungary looked like the moment they rolled the dice again, and it looked like it cost them everything. To understand Hungary's heartbreak, we have to go back to the technical heart of Ferrari's 2025 nightmare, the plankwear saga. The wooden plank under an F1 car is no trivial component. It's a regulatory safety mechanism. It limits how low a car can run and, by extension, how much downforce it can extract from the ground effect floor. When Ferrari was disqualified in Shanghai, it became obvious that the SF25 only performed at its best when running low enough to risk excessive plankwear. From that point on, every race became a high-wire act between speed and survival. The team tried to patch the problem. A rear suspension upgrade introduced for the Belgium-Hungary doubleheader was supposed to solve it. Early signs from Spa suggested it might have, but in Hungary, Leclerc's car was clearly running low. Sparks trailed behind it like fireworks. Ferrari knew this was their best chance all season to win. The Hungaroring is narrow, twisty, and notoriously difficult to pass on. That made qualifying king. Ferrari's unexpected pole was a result of extreme setup choices, ultra-low ride height, possibly tailored tire pressures, and optimized engine modes. It was a gamble. But when you're up against McLaren, with no title to lose, gambles start to feel like the only option. But Leclerc was convinced this race was winnable. But after the collapse, his radio messages became increasingly desperate and frustrated. He spoke of an undrivable car and urged the team to have listened to him. The underlying message. He knew the risk and had a different solution in mind. Meanwhile, rival George Russell openly questioned Ferrari's integrity. Was the team trying to flirt with the rulebook again? Russell believed Ferrari had jacked up tire pressures and switched Leclerc into a conservative engine mode in the final stint to protect the plank. That, he argued, explained the catastrophic drop in pace. Ferrari, of course, denied it. But denials down the haze, suspicions especially. When a collapse this severe happens under such familiar circumstances, Ferrari didn't just lose a race. In Hungary, they ignited a debate about whether their entire 2025 recovery narrative is a mirage. Team principal Fred Vasseur stood firm after the race. He dismissed the conspiracy theories, rejected the idea of plank-related issues, and chalked the collapse up to an unexplained chassis problem that only revealed itself post-race. According to him, if this had been another plank issue, the loss in performance would have been marginal, maybe a few tenths. But this was something else. This was seconds per lap. He cited data. He pointed to tire behavior, but for many, it felt like damage control. The real question isn't whether Ferrari knows what went wrong, it's whether they'll ever admit it publicly. These teams guard technical secrets with their lives. If the rear suspension upgrade really didn't solve the problem, Ferrari has every incentive to keep that under wraps while it quietly works on a long-term fix. But Vasseur didn't just push back against the critics, he pushed back against Leclerc himself. When journalists quoted Charles saying that this was their only chance at a win in 2025, Vasseur cut in before the question was finished. No, he interrupted. He insisted this was just their best chance so far and there would be more. He wasn't alone. McLaren team boss Andrea Stella agreed that Ferrari had pace, not just in Hungary, but in Belgium and even during the dry sessions of Silverstone before the upgrade. And Charles, despite his frustration, might eventually come around to it. His comments came in the raw aftermath of a painful loss. A few days later, he acknowledged the car's improved qualifying behavior and said it finally allowed him to drive with confidence again. For a driver known for single-lap brilliance, that matters. Maybe Hungary wasn't a one-off after all, but right now, that hope is just a theory, and theories don't win races. Even if Ferrari had gotten everything right with Leclerc, they were never truly in a position to fight McLaren head-to-head. Why? Because they're a one-car team, right? Now, Lewis Hamilton, once the sport's greatest threat, had a weekend in Hungary that was nothing short of dreadful. He missed Q3 by mere hundredths and spent the race buried in midfield traffic. And that matters, because McLaren, by contrast, had both drivers in play. When Norris switched to a one-stop strategy, Piastri could still apply pressure up front. That gave them tactical flexibility. Ferrari had no such luxury. Hamilton's slump is raising uncomfortable questions. Is he underperforming? Is he still adjusting to the SF25? Or has the new generation of ground effect cars just never suited his style? Even Toto Wolff, Hamilton's former Mercedes boss, admitted the 2022 to 2025 cars didn't bring out the best in him. He suggested the coming 2026 regulations might allow Hamilton to reset, but that's 2 seasons away. For now, Ferrari needs him operating at full capacity, and he's not there. Fred Vasseur bristled when asked about Hamilton's form, dismissing the idea that the 7-time world champion wasn't pulling his weight. But results speak louder than intentions. Hamilton himself seemed lost, describing his performance as useless. That kind of self-criticism isn't new. He's always been brutally honest with himself, but it also highlights just how disconnected he feels from the car. When one driver is fighting for pole and the other is battling just to reach Q3, no, team strategy can succeed, and Leclerc knows it. Ferrari is already the underdog to McLaren. Fighting with one hand tied behind your back makes that mission impossible. If Hungary was the best Ferrari could do, even with perfect qualifying, what hope do they have on circuits where overtaking matters more than grid position? What Hungary revealed wasn't just technical frailty, it was psychological instability. Ferrari looked like a team that finally believed again, only to be crushed by its own demons. Charles Leclerc felt it in his bones. He didn't just lose a race, he watched what could have been a season-defining moment crumble in real time, and he said the quiet part out loud. That was our only chance. But what if he's wrong? What if Ferrari's painful fall wasn't a death sentence but a spark? Fred Vasseur wants the world to believe that Hungary was the beginning of something, not the end. That the pole position wasn't a fluke. That the rear suspension upgrade is legitimate. That the team's qualifying strength is now real and repeatable. And there is evidence to support him. Data from Spa-Silverstone, even Hungary's first 2 stints. But evidence isn't belief. Ferrari needs to prove that this performance can be sustained under pressure, across different circuits, and in full-length races. And they need Hamilton to be a factor, not a passenger, because this isn't about 2025 anymore. Ferrari is not in a championship fight. What they are in is a credibility FITA battle to prove they are building something real for 2026 and beyond. Sporadic race wins, operational sharpness, strong Saturdays, those are the green shoots of a future contender. But if they can't turn those into Sundays that matter, then all they'll ever be is the team that almost made it. Again, if you care about the soul of Formula One, the passion, the heartbreak, the unrelenting pursuit of glory, then Ferrari's journey should matter to you, because it's not just about red cars and Italian pride. It's about watching a legendary team claw its way back from mediocrity. And that story isn't over. If you want to be part of that story, subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comments, and tell us, do you think Ferrari's comeback is real? Or are we just watching history repeat itself, one painful weekend at a time?